Welcome to the Homeschool Together podcast. Where one working mom and a stay-at-home dad help you navigate the nuts and bolts of the growing and dynamic world of homeschooling.
With a focus on early learners, like me.
All the ins and outs of building and maintaining your homeschool life.
Homeschool.
Find out tips and tricks to make things like this easier.
I'm reading.
And ultimately, enjoy educating your kids. And what's that last thing?
Have fun together. Did I do good, Daddy?
Yeah, you did, sweetie. Good job. Hello and welcome back to Homeschool Together. Thanks so much for joining us. We really appreciate it. If you could have a chance, head down into the show notes and head over to our Gumroad store or head over to iTunes and the gift of giving. You know, as we share with you, share back with us with a 5-star review and how awesome Matt is and how wonderful Ariel is. Ariel is the gluon to this nucleus, holding the protons and neutrons together.
I love how you're starting off sciencey. Let's all just preface this that Matt has a degree in physics.
What?
So he's a super
I'm
science nerd.
No, I'm not. I've been an unemployed potato farmer Uber driver for the last 7 years.
Uber.
No, I am. Every day. I
Yeah,
have
but
two
you
little
don't
girls.
get paid by that.
Two little girls walk downstairs and they put in their request. Daddy, I need to go to school. Daddy, I need to go to dancing. And I'm like, okay,
Daddy, I need to go to co-op.
I can't cancel this rideshare, so I have to go do it. And they give me a 5-star review every single time.
Really, every time?
Yeah, every time they say.
Always 5-star.
No, they say, great driver, very safe, brings snacks, mediocre jokes.
It's a pretty good one.
Pretty good one? Yeah,
pretty good one.
Anyway, so today we're going to be talking about us finishing up the Blossom and Root. We have been very into Blossom and Root lately because we are now doing a lot of Blossom and Root. We are reviewed the prehistory Blossom and Root space science that we are doing right now, coupled with the Build Your Library. We're also doing Blossom and Root Early Years Volume 1 with our youngest, our 3-year-old. We wanted to have a chance today to talk about the space science that is for level 0.
So
Kinder, basically, that we have finished. It took us a long time to get through this.
Yes, we did it. It's a full year curriculum.
We did some slow schooling on this one.
We really did on this because we had to do some stops and starts with it for other conflicts and things. But so for those of you who aren't familiar with Blossom and Root, this is a digital PDF curriculum. It's totally secular, super awesome. Yep. And one of the really cool things is that Christina sells bits and pieces. So you can buy
modular based,
you can buy the whole kindergarten unit, or you can buy one which is the science module with the nature module. Spoiler alert, we'll be talking about the nature module on another podcast. But this is just space science. I had heard so many things about this from other parents just saying that this was such a neat introduction to space science. Science for kindergarten is not the easiest thing, right?
No, it's a common question.
It's a really hard thing. And we got the Building Foundations for Scientific Understanding, which I had heard really great things about. But that is a very, we're going to have to think about how we're going to implement that. We'd like to do it at some point, but this just felt like a really fun thing. And I honestly didn't know when else we were actually going to get to space science specifically. Looking through the different years of curriculum as we're going ahead, I was not seeing a spot where space science really fit in. Yeah. So this seemed like the perfect thing to do. And one of the things that I really like about this, and we'll get into it certainly, but this is definitely not just a kindergarten curriculum.
No,
by any means. You could do this we will do this again when our daughter will be 8 or 9 and her sister will be kinder. We will do this again, and it will be every bit as good, I'm sure. Yeah. Even with an older learner, I think that you could definitely adapt this up because the spines that she's using are not, and the other books she's using are not super kiddie books. I mean, they're really great books.
You can level these books up. The thing, you bring that up, and having done this with just my oldest, I could really see how this would be a lot of fun with 2 kids.
Yeah, because there's a lot of fun activities.
There's a lot of fun activities and things that you can do, and a lot of exploration, and a lot of there's a lot of things that I wanted to do because when we started this, her sister was really young. She was 2 or so. And, it was, you didn't want her to get involved into some of these activities, like some of the art activities and whatnot. And now I'm starting to think about it. I'm like, yeah, this would be really fun with a kinder and like a fourth grader. So if you're out there who's got some older student, but also a kinder or first grader, this is like a really cool, great introduction. Now that we know the James Webb is up there in the sky, it's
a fun time to study it.
It's a lot of fun. We've just shot an asteroid with a satellite. We're intergalactic asteroid warfare is now is now on the table with the DART satellite. So we've had a lot of wonderful, and I know the Artemis has been delayed, but we're potentially going back to the moon. So there's a lot of like really cool. It's a good time for space.
It's a really good
private
time
space flight. We've got NASA's gearing back up as well. It feels like we're in kind of this revitalization period of back in like the 60s when we were doing the moonshot.
Yeah,
this is a really cool time. It's a really great time to live, because we're going to be seeing people not only stepping foot on moon, but also stepping foot on Mars. And that will be a historical day there, a legitimate another planet, not just the moon. That is going to be in our lifetime. And this is, I think, a really cool, I think there's going to be in the zeitgeist of what we do as homeschoolers. This is science and space is going to have a huge presence in our kids' lives. I'm really eager to see those days. I can't wait to, sit there we just won't be watching TV. We'll be streaming it from, on our big TV.
Into our glasses.
Into our Google glasses, because we'll get the, the 3D with the smell-o-vision of Mars in our nose. But one can only hope. But anyway, these are the types of things that I think are really important. And I like how she laid this out, and it can absolutely be done with multiple kids.
Right. And we talked about going up, but let's also talk about going down. You did a lot of this with a preschooler in tow.
Yep.
And while she didn't understand a lot of it, the activity parts of it, she totally got into. There's a part where you making spaceships, and there's some pretend parts and things that she just was totally about. And the videos were really cool, even if she had no idea what was going on. Watching a video about Venus is still really cool.
No,
so,
absolutely.
and she was still kind of fascinated. I think there's something, and there's like this basic human fascination, even for young kids, with space.
Yeah.
Because it's so cool. It's captivating. So I think this is just a great way to start science.
I think it keys into the fact that a lot of young kids love the idea of fantasy, right? A lot of the things that we end up watching are, fantasy, another kingdom. Our daughter was watching Sophie the Great, Sophia the First. I'm sorry. Yes. Sophia the First. And she's like in princesses in another world. You have Elena of Avalor with our older daughter, and she, it's magic and all that stuff. And when you start to talk about these other heavenly bodies, it seems like another fantasy world that they can be part of, because they have so many imaginative things that they watch or they're part of, or you're reading to them. This is just like, wow, Venus could be a real thing, because I see it.
Right.
How is that any different than my other things?
And it's so much to explore, right? Yeah, exactly. And it's so otherworldly, pun intended, that I think it is. It's captivating. They can look at the stars and it's like, wow, that's something that we know something about, but we can't go there yet. Yeah. But it's a cool thing to learn about. And our daughter was immediately like, yeah. And the way that this is presented,
exactly.
I think the way that she does this through the letters from this other, an alien on another planet. Zula, to get your kids really, that
connected instantly.
That was such a great tactic here.
The idea, the way she designed it so that. So
and we'll talk about how it's designed.
Yeah, let's get into it. So basically the structure of the entire curriculum is about 36 weeks, I think. Yeah, about 36 weeks. Mm-hmm. So you can do this at any speed that you want. There is no hard requirement that you need to finish it in the year. For us, we took over a year. So you think about it's like 60 weeks. So we were doing like one every other week, because that's just how our schedule is. But if you want to do it in like a hot shot through a summer, you can do that as well. It's really kind of,
there's a lot here though. I don't know that, I think you kind of need like,
I found like you could do 2 a week.
Maybe you could probably do 2 a week.
You could do 2 a week. It's not out of the realm. When you get into the lesson, so if you just think of it as the lesson, there's 36 lessons. Each lesson, maybe 40 minutes with like reading, art activity.
Depends how much you get into that activity. Yeah. That activity is a big thing.
And I can tell you some of them, like when we were building our spaceship, we were doing it with Legos. And that was 3 hours, right? That was just a huge Lego session, right? Mm-hmm. The space science went right into a Lego session that lasted 2 or 3 hours, right? And we were building spaceships and everything. Even the little one got involved in that. So You can really, and I think she even has a whole page in the beginning when she's walking you through how to use the curriculum. She has a whole like page about going off the grid, and it's really about embracing the lesson and the lesson plan and the idea of what you're kind of bringing to your learner. Christina does a great job at giving you a bunch of ideas, giving you a bunch of books, giving you a bunch of potential activities. But that is, they're more guidelines than actual rules. It's not a script that you have to follow. If you're doing like a Right Start Math, or even like a teach your child to read in 100 lessons, those are very scripted things. This is definitely not. And I've seen this kind of flow through a lot of Christina's stuff where she gives you a lot of ideas. And that's a lot of times when you're the learner, when you're the teacher, you don't know what to do. And if you're given only one thing to do and you can't do that for whatever reason, I don't have the book, or I don't have the supplies to do that, you kind of feel like, oh, I'm failing this curriculum. She gives you so many ideas, and those ideas can spark other ideas that may be things that you can do, or how you can like smash two things together and create some other learning experience. That's what I like about her stuff, is that she gives you so many options. And because it's so open-ended, you don't have to do everything. And there's a little bit of intimidation there. When you get so many options, you think, oh, I got to do everything. But it's not the case. Like, you can just pick one spine, one book, one activity, and you've only done 5% of her suggestions. You haven't failed. You've actually done a great job, right? So do come into it in that way.
Yeah, I think it depends how much your kids are into and what they start getting into. And if they're really into books, then read all the books. If they're just totally not into that, and they're going to want to watch the videos and just do the activities, then do that.
She did that. She's doing this in the prehistory, where like in the middle of it, she says, oh, for the outdoorsy people, here's some ideas. For the book, fans, here's this one. For the creatives over here, here's some other ideas. And so she breaks it up between what type of family profile you may have.
And this one doesn't have quite that much, but it does have a lot of ideas. So just going through the contents before we get into and you can see there's a really great sample on the Blossom and Root page. So you can look at the first 20 pages.
We'll go ahead and link that in the show notes below.
Yeah, and you can look at the first 20 pages so you can see all of this. This is all on there. What we're talking about today will all be stuff that you can see. What I think is really cool is I would have expected a space science unit study to just be like, or even year, to just be about like, maybe rockets and all the planets and maybe the galaxy, the sun, like, I don't know. I would have expected it to be more basic. This is really cool. Go ahead and read what we have in the table of contents. Just kind of basically, like, she starts out talking about the supplies that you're going to need. Like, what is your mission?
Yeah, so it goes over the overall. So basically, all 36 lessons have an overarching mission that your student is going through, and then each lesson pertains to that mission in a progressively additive nature. Like, you're constantly adding new things that you have to do, and it's all centered around the alien Zula. And so the first thing is you're presented your mission. You have to teach Zula and bring a bunch of information to Zula, who's in another solar system, all about our solar system. And, they give you that mission, and that's the first thing you got to do. And then it starts going through the idea of, okay, we've been tasked, if you can imagine, we're tasked with going to Alpha Centauri to meet Zula or whatever, right? What do we
like Planet X, something like that.
Yeah. Another star on another planet, and you're going to go meet her. Okay, great. What do we need to go there? First thing we need to do is get the supplies, and then we need to talk about our Earth, because Zula wants to know about our Earth, and all that type of stuff. So all the various aspects of Earth.
Mm-hmm. And like, what do you need to survive in space? What would it be like to live in space? What kind of things would you need? And you're asking really the learner to think a lot about, like, okay, I would need food. I would need this. What is the habitat of space like? So you're really thinking about that. And then you're learning all about rockets.
Yep. And then you got to build your spaceship, and then you're
design your own spaceship,
collecting your specimens, talking about the atmosphere, and then you're getting ready for launch. And then you've launched into launched off the planet. Well, where do we go first? Well, we're going to start inside and work our way out, because obviously we have to go in and slingshot around the sun, and then on our way out. And because we do that, well, we might as well collect information and learn about the various bodies in our solar system. And we're going to do that all the way out. So we're going to start at the sun, then we're going to hit Mercury and Venus, and then Earth. We'll talk a little bit about the moon. And while we're here and on Earth, we'll talk about the International Space Station, and so on and so forth. So you can imagine how you're as you're moving out further and further, when you get to like Mars, you're going to talk about all the rovers that are on. Then the next week, you'll talk about the rovers that are on Mars, and then the asteroid belt, and then Jupiter, and so on. And there's just this progressive amount of information that just keeps getting layered and layered.
I love the building aspect of it.
Yeah, it just builds.
And it's like, okay, now we're going to talk about the galaxy, and we're going to talk about satellites, and we're talking about asteroids. And I feel like there's no basic subject, area that has been missed in this. I mean, it is pretty.
You get basically by the very end a very good, 101 surface level thing of all the various pieces of the universe, whether, starting from basically the learner and the planet that they're on all the way out to galaxies and black holes. So you're going to touch everything in between there, and really focusing mainly on our solar system. I think you don't actually leave our solar system until week 29. So the first 28 weeks are all the various bodies within our own solar system.
Right. And learning about satellites, asteroids, International Space Station,
everything
supplies,
from
habitats,
everything
what astronauts
from
do, all that
here
stuff.
to the Oort cloud, right? Basically. And everything in between is all covered. And then all of a sudden you get beyond that. And so she talks about galaxies and all the other great aspects. So I think from the standpoint of completeness for a kindergartner, this is really good.
I think this is good for like an elementary age kid.
Yeah. If you're looking for...
I mean, maybe your fifth grader's not going to be as excited about the whole Zula thing.
Yeah.
But all the information that's given
but I think it's framed
is great.
And even then, if you have an older learner, the Zula stuff is really just a framework for learning, right? And so let's get into a mission. So we're just going to talk about like week 2. So because that is included in the giveaway, and we don't want to give away any secret sauce that Christina has
this is in the
curriculum.
sample.
So this is in the sample. You could see this online. So if you go down and download it, you can absolutely do that. So this week is about supplies. And so basically, Christina always starts with helping you as the educator frame the discussion or the lesson and what you're going to be doing. So here are the top points that you're going to have to understand about, bringing things with you to space. Food, what would you need? And it really talks about, you ask the learner, well, what do you need every day? Well, I need to go and eat food. I need to drink water, and I need to go potty, and you need to bring clothes, and talking about temperature. And so you're talking about supplies of what are the basic needs. And so she provides you some key points that are going to help you guide your discussion along the way. And then once you get into there, then you start getting into, here are the concepts that they want you to ask. So you start prompting your learner. Then there are some reading materials, whether that is a spine. There's a lot of spines in this book. They're not always the same spine for the week, so they kind of move around a little bit. So you may want to pick and choose what you want there. And it's maybe good to kind of get your books early, I think a week or so, or a week or two early. These are not going to be like normal curriculums, like the reading curriculums that we have, where the books are going to be in hot demand. These are the types of books that I think you'll be able to just get.
Right. Yeah. And she relies heavily on a lot of the DK books, like the Space DK Smithsonian book, which is just a fabulous book. I didn't have a lot of problems getting these books from the library. Like you say, I don't think that they were in high enough demand, but she uses a lot of really new, really gorgeous books. I mean,
and we own a few. We own a few of these as well. We own a few of the spines.
Yeah, really great book list. So she'll use books like that, and then she'll also use books like Let's Read and Find Out Science, which is kind of a picture book. Think of it almost like a Magic School Busy type thing, is where it's all pictures, but it has captions all over with real factual information. So she'll use books like that. Yeah. I think that the book list is very high quality.
I liked it. Really I thought a lot of the books and a lot of the spines that we were using were just stellar. And I know you have, over the last year or two, have been acquiring additional books. And we brought a lot of those in. We tend to get like a lot of early readers on space. We tend to have additional spines on space. So books that we have that are not called out in the curriculum that I tended to bring in a lot of.
I didn't feel, though, as much as we did bring in some supplements because we just happened to own them, I did not feel an intense need to bring in a lot of supplements because she lists so many extra supplemental books and gives you the page numbers for them, which I so appreciate.
Which I very much appreciate.
Just including a list of supplements with no page numbers is, super helpful. So I really appreciate the way she's done it, and I didn't feel the need to do heavy supplementing.
Yeah. Then with every single lesson comes a captain's log. And so you can think you're channeling your inner Captain Kirk and Star Trekkie, And at the back of the way you put it here in the binder, it was at the back of the binder. And so they had to find out what the date is, what is the month, and they had to fill in all this information. And then there was this kind of like centerpiece of like an art activity or some information that we had to go and find. Oh, does Venus have any moons? No, it doesn't. Does Earth have a moon? Yes, it does. Is Venus bigger or smaller than the sun? And a lot of these questions that she would include on the captain's log would be things that the learner would be able to reference from the earlier weeks. So we just learned about the sun. The question is, is Mercury bigger or smaller than the sun? Well, obviously it's smaller, right? And so because the learner just learned that the sun is the largest thing in our solar system, well, naturally the next week when they ask, is Mercury bigger? Well, they'll know instantly. So it has that building aspect that I really like. So she does pull in those activities there, or that knowledge that they had gained earlier. Also on top of that, very often are the pictures that you have to do. So I think on the supplies one, you have to draw the supplies that you would bring. And, it gives you a little opportunity to do some coloring and maybe drawing things and, try your best at drawing toilet paper, that type of thing, and you can really have fun with it. There's not a huge like logging or journaling aspect there. It's really just drawing pictures. I don't think they rarely had you write anything other than maybe your name or a few simple words, things like that, because I know it is geared towards kindergartners, so you didn't have to do a lot of writing.
Although you certainly could add it for older kids easily.
I do like how she brought in the logging aspect, because that brings in learning what is the day for the month, what is the month that you're in, what is the day of the week. And these are all very much skills that you want a kindergartner to begin to master.
Right.
And so that is just built right into the logging aspect. So that was really cool. And then what I really liked is she gave you a lot of videos. And obviously there's a lot of videos you can go off on that, but she always gives you something simple to start with. And then a couple web links as well. So if you have like a computer or if you have a tablet that you tend to use in your homeschool, you can bring those things up immediately, see some additional information, additional pictures, additional learning. A lot of times she was referencing a lot of NASA videos. So really high quality NASA videos have been, generated. I know National Geographic has a lot of space stuff as well that I tended to pop up when I was doing YouTube searches. So between NASA and National Geographic, you have a lot of like great supplemental information. I think whenever we got to like a new planet, we would just go right to the TV, pull it up, watch like 2 or 3 videos, and then we would start to get into it. So we kind of get an idea of like, okay, here's the planet visually. I would do the readings, we would do the activities, do the log, and then maybe some additional learning, and that would be about it. So that's kind of how we approached it. It took me about 5 minutes maybe at the most once you get into it to set everything up. So for me, it was really just pulling all the books, finding all the page numbers that I needed to use for that, getting everything set up, pulling down art supplies that I think I might need to do, and then getting my phone ready to connect to my television to cast whatever, various YouTube videos that I might have. So it's really not a lot of effort. It's not a lot of like,
it's not bad. And
it's not asking a lot of you as the educator. So I feel you could just like, we have an hour. Let's slot this thing in and get this. We can do this right here.
And I think it's, that she gives a full supply list. So you can definitely use that when you're looking to prepare. So it is easy to grab that hour. What I tended to notice about this, because you would do this while I was at work, and then I would come home, and oftentimes this was a springboard into our kids having further play around whatever they were studying, which I thought was really cool. You don't see that all the time with what we're studying. Like, we were doing our around the world journey. I mean, they would enjoy learning about, France or something, but it didn't lead to them playing that later. Whereas when they would learn about other planets, all of a sudden I would come home and they would be explorers. So I think that that's a really cool aspect of this. I think that it does spark creativity and imagination. There's not a ton of activities per week. There's a few hands-on things that you can do, some suggestions, but I think that you can definitely, you can even add in your own things if you want to bulk it up. If your kids are really interested and you want to, continue down the rabbit hole, I think there's quite a bit you could do.
Absolutely. And then at the beginning of every lesson, if we forgot to mention, there is a kind of a message to the learner. And you read this as sort of like it's a mission control notification to you as the, the head of...
That has a Zula message within it, right?
Yeah, it's like, good morning, Captain. We received the message from Zula, and here's what it says. Hello, Captain. it is starting to, I was doing some research on your solar system. You can actually have a lot of fun and just read it.
Yeah,
in a
you
very
had a bunch of funny voices.
playful, whatever manner you want to do it. But every single lesson starts with kind of maybe like a 2 or 3 minute, here's what the information is that we need to learn today. And so that sets the learner's mind in kind of a playful, fun, engaging way. And then you come in with all the materials to help them learn those things. I found doing the captain's log at the end was best, as if you were journaling at the end of the night, like where you're trying to like sum up what you had done, and then you go ahead and finish that at the end. So that was kind of the whole thing. I really like this whole space science curriculum.
I think it's fantastic.
You can go as wild. You can build, with all those Amazon boxes that come into the house, you can build as big of a spaceship. A lot of people
do. They'll build big spaceships. Yeah. I've seen people get astronaut outfits for their kids, and you can go kind of as cool and deep into this as you want with the messages from Zula.
Yep.
I know that our daughter really looked forward to those. She was very interested. In her mind, like Zula was a person like contacting her, like she was totally into it.
There were moments where she goes, oh yeah, Zula needs my help,
Yeah, she totally felt like, okay, this is my calling, I got to learn about this.
Yeah, right, yeah.
And she actually retained quite a bit for it being kinder, but I think, as we've said, you can absolutely do this with multi-age kids. If you don't have a kindergartner, I really just wouldn't miss this one unless you've got a much older child. But if
I think from the standpoint of like a science curriculum that is very topical, and it'll allow your learner to be aware of the various kind of like really cool space level stuff that's coming out. I don't think you could go wrong here. I mean, you could do some type of earth science or physical science type of thing. And if that's important to you, that's great.
Well, and I think you do those things too.
Yeah, you can do those
But
as
I
well.
haven't seen, looking at other science programs, there's life sciences, there's
to
biology, chemistry, there's
the drier.
earth sciences.
If you're going to say like as dry as the Sahara over here and as like super fun Disney, thing, I think this curriculum is more towards the super fun Disney type of thing, where I think the way it's designed, the way it is structured, the way Zula is brought into it, I think it brings a lot more playful aspect and makes the learning more playful, as opposed to sitting down and maybe doing more workbook stuff. Like we're doing a little bit of the core knowledge thing right now for science. And it's a little bit drier. Like it's like you're just learning concepts.
It's much more workbook.
And this felt like it was more playful.
And this is, I think it's interesting. We were looking at building foundations for scientific understanding, and I've looked at Real Science Odyssey, and a lot of that stuff is, that's based in physical sciences, where there's things that you can observe, and there's properties around you, right? You're learning about actual pieces of biology and things. And while I think all that is really great, nothing that I've seen actually covers space science. Yeah. So I haven't seen another one. If there's a great space science unit study or whatever out there, please link it. Let us know. But I haven't seen one that really covers it until you get much older, into more like middle school, high school level, and then maybe there's going to be an astronomy. You might get into it there. But otherwise, I haven't seen anything for the younger kids. And I think this is the time when you really develop that, curiosity about space, is to do it in elementary. So I'm so happy that she started with this. And when we interviewed Christina, she was an early childhood educator, and I think she taught like kinder and first grade, maybe.
It was very early, yeah.
I don't remember exactly, but I remember she said when she went out to make her own curriculum for her daughters, and then she went on to sell the curriculum, she was like, I have to start with space, because the kids always love space.
It's sort of like the dinosaurs aspect, where it's just, it seems so crazy and fanciful that I can't believe it, but it's so cool, right?
It's so cool, and the kids are naturally so interested.
Yeah, what's cool is that it actually exists. Like we're going through like her prehistory thing right now. We're talking about the Precambrian period, and we're looking at these creatures that existed, and you're just like, these are aliens. Like this is not these are not real. I cannot believe that there was some like worm-like thing that had 20 long legs and these huge spikes off the top of the back. Like that's something that my toddler would draw and say, this is a horse, you know? Like, no, that was an actual creature that existed. And, the fact that those things existed, I think just sparks that imagination, sparks that creativity. And I think I agree with you that space just has that, the gravitas, it pulls you in, right?
It invokes curiosity in all of us.
And it's playful too.
Yeah, so I think this is a great way to start it. So we highly recommend it.
Yeah, we just
whenever anyone asks about science, we're
we
like,
say,
don't
go do
miss
space
this one.
science. Yeah, go do space sciences. All right, so we are going to end it the way we always end it now as our new segment.
Yep.
It's what book are we into?
Book of the week.
Book of the week. We are into Danny the Dinosaur.
Yes, our preschooler is very into Danny the Dinosaur.
So we got
to read it 5 times a day.
I know and that book is 60 pages long, and so I was at a thrifting, and I found these Scholastic read along DVDs, and basically it's a DVD where you have I think 3 or 4 books depending on how long they are, 3 or 4 books, very much like Reading Rainbow type of thing, where it puts the book into kind of a light animation, and it's telling the story, and the pages are changing, and sometimes one of the characters is lightly moving, but it's a video that you can watch and somebody's reading it to you. And one of the DVDs that we got was Danny the Dinosaur, but it had like 2 additional books in it. But every time Danny the Dinosaur came on, my toddler or my 3-year-old went like crazy, Danny the Dinosaur, Danny the Dinosaur. And the other day she was digging through her sister's books and she found our early reader Danny the Dinosaur book, and I have been having to read it multiple times.
Yeah, we got these Scholastic DVDs because we have a minivan. We got to roll the minivan.
We got minivan mafia. What?
Best purchase ever, really. If you're holding out from the minivan life, join us. It's great.
I can fit a sheet of plywood in that minivan.
It's great.
Bring it, pickup trucks.
Yeah. So we have the screen in there for movies, and we don't let them watch too often, but we were like, what can we do that might be educational? So it's not just a repeat of Disney movies. Not that that's not fun too, but that's why we got these. And so we've been looking at thrift for more of these Scholastic educational DVDs, and we do see them every once in a while. So keep your eyes peeled for those. Yep. But yes, Danny the Dinosaur book of the week. Thanks so much for joining us today and making us a part of your homeschool journey. Please engage with us on social media. Join our Homeschool Together podcast group on Facebook and find us at Homeschool Together Podcast on Instagram. We'd love to hear your feedback, questions, and recommendations. Until next time.
Happy homeschooling!